So, hi, Teresa. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Melita. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, me too. Because you're an international speaker and you've won awards for speaking about everything to do with marketing. And that's one of my favorite topics to talk about on the show. And not only marketing, but how marketing and mindset are linked and work together. So I am really excited to dig in and talk all about that. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be in the position you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing I should say is I never wanted to have my own business. I wasn't one of these kids that sold stuff when they were younger or anything like that. I was a really good employee. I liked being an employee, being patted on the head, told I was doing a really good job. And I'd worked in marketing, I'd done a degree in it, and I'd worked in it for about 10-ish years. And like I said, loved it. It was great, very happy. And then I joke that I had like an early midlife crisis, not old enough for a midlife crisis at that point. And I was in a job I was head of marketing for an agency, and I'd worked with I used to do corporate marketing for Land Rover. I've done some really amazing stuff. And I was in that job and my life changed. So my husband and I separated. I found myself on my own with my 4-year-old, having to run a house, manage everything, pay for everything. And it was good, but it wasn't great. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna hand my notice in. I'm really good at what I do. I've done marketing for a long time. I know this stuff. I'll get another job easy, forgetting that I'm in a fairly rural part of Shropshire in the middle of England. And actually, there weren't the companies that could pay the salaries that I wanted. So about 4 weeks into my 8 weeks notice, I started to panic, thinking, okay, I'm not going to have a job in a few weeks and I have to pay my mortgage and my car and my daughter's nursery fees. And so I decided to look at the option of having my own business. Within about 4 days, my boss realized I was looking at this and asked me to leave. So I had basically 1 month's salary, no savings, no partner, no rich parents. I had parents, they weren't rich. And basically within my first month, I had to earn about £1,500 just to keep the roof over our heads. So I went out there and basically, and I'm not really a big fan of the word hustle, but I did, and I managed to get clients and I helped them to be a marketing consultant for them. If they couldn't afford a marketing manager, I would go in, give them a few hours and give them a plan, maybe do some stuff, manage social media, that sort of thing. And it was great, except I went from having one boss to having 18 bosses. And suddenly this whole vision and dream of, oh, you'll have your own business, it'll be brilliant. My daughter had just started school. How on earth anybody can work in school hours? I have no idea. It felt like the minute I dropped her off, I was having to go back and pick her up again. So I started to think, yeah, I've created this business, which is ace, and I'm pleased and I'm earning money, but this isn't really working out for me. This isn't lighting me up or making me super happy. I was stressed. And I started to get picked up by other people. So people started to ask me to speak. And then I would be flown out somewhere to the States and speak over there. And then there'd be some kind of survey and I would come up as one of the UK's influencing marketing people. And I started to build this reputation and this personal brand. And that was what I loved. And I loved helping small businesses, solopreneurs, people who are in it, doing it, starting straight away, and helping those people at that point. For those people who couldn't necessarily afford to bring on a marketing manager with 10 years worth of experience and a degree. So I started to look at this online world. I had learned lots. I had gone to all the online experts. I started to look at it and thought, do you know what? I would like that. I would like the ability to go and fly somewhere and speak because I have that freedom. Whereas I didn't get that when I had clients. I was, in fact, one client even said, I think you're going to come back with an American accent soon. You're there that often. And that was kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't working. So about 3-4 years ago, I decided to halt my very successful agency. I'd got a team and basically ditch most of my income overnight and turn to an online business. And those first few months, 6 months a year, were terrifying. But I am very glad to say that today I have a completely online business where I support business owners all over the world to understand how to market their business, but not just market it, but work on that mindset so the two go hand in hand, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, there's just so much packed into that story already. I want to unpack it a little bit if I can. But how did it, you you had that realization that it wasn't going to be easy to get a job, and that maybe starting your own business was the way to go. What went through your mind at that point? Because that really isn't the easy decision to make at all, particularly when that you're solely going to be dependent on that income. Was there anything that went through your mind that you really remember? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I felt that way and still went for it.
Do you know what? I think I was just so lost in the moment of it. Like it was almost panic mode, if I'm honest, because I was almost like back up against the wall. Where am I turning? I knew I didn't want to stay in the job I'd got. I'd gone to all the agencies that were in my local area, and they had been lovely and kind and said, yeah, we'd love to have you, but we can't pay your salary. And it literally got to the point where I don't think I have another choice. And weirdly, at that time, someone contacted me and said, would you help me with our marketing? And I want someone to do social media. And I was a bit like, well, yeah, I could do it on a side thing. And I gave them a price. And without even second thought, they went, yeah, great, thanks. Can we start? And I think at that point, I thought, well, hang on a minute. Like, so I only need 10 people to do that, and I have more than covered my monthly income. So that's at the end. I just think it was panic. I just think it was like we're going blindly into it. And do you know what? For me, I think two things were so important. One was I had no time. So within 1 week, my business was up, running, website. I mean, I was very lucky. I was in marketing. I knew people who could make me a simple website. I had a brand. I had my business cards because that's what you had in those days. And I had all that done within 1 week. So I had no time to think about it. And the other thing was I had to earn money. And there's no motivation like that. Like there's no motivation like my daughter and I will literally be homeless if I don't make money. And if the circumstances were different, I'm not entirely sure I would have succeeded like I have if I hadn't have had that pressure and I hadn't have had to do it at the speed I did.
Yeah. So do you think there's, we don't necessarily want to put ourselves under that kind of pressure to succeed and fast, but do you think there's a mindset lesson? I know mindset is your thing, but tucked into that it's really important to know that goal and to be motivated, to find that way, to feel motivated enough to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's key for me. That financial goal was my only goal. It wasn't like I sat there and did a business plan. And I was talking to some of my students the other week, and they were like, oh, I'm going for this thing, and they want a business plan. And I'm like, and we were on a group call, and I was like, anybody want to put their hands up who did a business plan before they started their business? And the truth is, in reality, we don't. A bit like, we were talking before we got on about the fact of we both have a marketing background, we've done it for a long time, I've got a degree in it, you did the chartered district marketing things. It's nothing like you do practically. It's nothing like you do in the everyday. So for me, I think the goal of I've got to earn that money, and unbeknownst to me, I'd set a goal because it didn't feel like a goal. It felt like a big axe hanging over my head, if I'm honest. But the goal of I've got to earn that money meant that that's what I strive for, and kept my mind focused. If I'd gone into it and was like, oh, well, it might be nice to do this, or I could do this, I think I would have procrastinated. I think I would have, I wouldn't have created the business as fast as I did. But don't get me wrong, I made huge mistakes in those early days, massive ones, which I then learned from and changed, and my business changed. But I think the kind of axe over my head was the motivator I needed to get me going.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned that it felt like you had like a dozen different bosses. And I remember that's when I started in my first business, I had a communication consultancy. So very similar, working with large corporates and the UN, because they were the ones that could pay me what I wanted. And it was great for a while. But yeah, I soon found, hang on a minute, I've switched one boss to dozens of bosses, and they don't agree on anything like deadlines. And I found that they would shift deadlines around, and it was just so stressful. It took me a long time to realize there must be a better way and redesign everything. Sounds like you got to that conclusion a little bit faster than I did. But was there a real kind of turning point where you thought, hang on a minute, and that you decided to kind of pick up those reins and do things differently?
I think there was a couple of things in the early days, like I remember I was always the one running in and out of the school run. Like, the other parents would be stood chatting and I'd be like, get out of my way. So I'd throw my daughter through the door. And then I'd be the one that turned up late and my poor daughter would be stood there with the teacher like, where's my mum? And I just thought, this isn't what people talk about. They talk about be your own boss, laptop lifestyle. And so for me, it was like, just not having that choice and having someone else own my time. Like, now I couldn't imagine. Now, don't get me wrong, I have responsibilities. We had a time to get on this call today, and obviously I stuck to it, but I couldn't imagine having someone, when they email me, I have to drop everything and do that thing. And that just didn't feel right. And then, like I said, I started looking at all these other people doing these online businesses and some of these people who were out in the world as the experts. And I started to think, well, what makes them different from me? And if they can do it, then I can do it. And starting to love, and an online business is not for everybody. Like, don't get me wrong, I could literally pick up my business and take it anywhere and work from anywhere, which is amazing. But I sit in my office on my own talking to my computer most of the day. And that's not for some people. Some people like the people. So for me, it was just like I started to realize the bits that I really liked. And then that's when I was more strategic. That's when I sat down and went, actually, this bit, not so much. This bit, yeah, this bit, great. Maybe I could do a bit of that, and then put it together and go, well, what does that look like? And I'm a huge fan of people doing that. Like, I think there's so much out there where we're being told your business should look like this. You should behave like this. You should have this type of business. You should juggle things or manage things like this. I'm a mum, a stepmom, a dog mum. My husband was in the military when my husband and I first got together, my new husband, and my only husband, thank goodness. But like, you know, he was in the military. I was looking after the kids, doing all the stuff. And like, I would watch some people and they were like, if you're not up at 6 a.m. hustling, doing all the stuff. And it's like, you know, let's do the school run first, shall we? And so for me, I started to really kind of find my own space going, this is what I want and need, because this is what's going to work for me, my life, my family, my situation. And I'm super passionate about everyone discovering that for themselves.
Yeah, I love that you've just given everyone listening permission to do it their way. And as you say, it's so easy to look at what everyone else is doing and say, oh, this is and in fact, this is why this podcast was born in the first place, because I just had one too many person turn up and say, well, I have to do this and I have to do that and I need to have this and I need to be doing this. It's like, according to who? Who told you it has to be? Well, I watched a video on YouTube. It's like, well, that's not relevant to you. And it's great that we have these resources like YouTube and Google, and there is a heap of amazing value on there.
So much.
The trouble is, yeah, you don't know what's right for you and at what time. Only you can make that judgment, or invest in a coach or a mentor or someone that can support you in helping you figure out, well, what comes first, second, third, and what works for you. But it has to be your business on your terms.
Totally. And in your season of life, you know, my husband is no longer in the military. He retired a couple of years back. So he has a job that's 9 till 5 now, pretty much. And he's home every evening, which is great and not great in some senses, because we're very used to being apart. But my life has changed a bit. My children are growing up. My daughter's now 11. She's going to be 12 soon. My stepson's 18. So it's not that it's static either. It's like, do you know what? That works for this time, this place. So it's not like if you're sat there thinking, well, this is the life or the business I want, or this is the person I want to model. If it doesn't fit with where you are in your season of life, then it's not going to work. I went through a whole host of like getting up at 4 a.m. every morning. I do a morning routine, which I would do at 4 a.m. I'd be at my desk by 5. I'd be doing all the stuff. Now, I don't want to do that. So I don't get up at 4 a.m. I get up at 6, 7, and I do my slow morning routine. But it's what suits you where you are at your time. Again, it's like bringing on a team and having an assistant, and it's like either everyone's rushing to get there, or everyone's making them feel like they should rush to get there. So someone can look at me in my business, and I've got In fact, I did some stuff just last week. Actually, I've got 7 people in my team. I have an assistant, I have a graphic designer, I have a podcast editor, I have all these people. I have people at home. So I have, as we're speaking, the very lovely Rachel is downstairs making our dinners for this evening. Like, but do you know how long it took me to get to this stage? And also, like, from an income point of view, some people might go, well, I can't do that until I have a 7-figure business. Well, I don't have a 7-figure business. It's just priorities. I just made a decision that actually I don't want to work every minute of every single day. So this afternoon, my daughter and I are going to have our nails done. And I love the fact that I can just take an afternoon to do that because I've got these other people. Could I earn more money if I didn't have all these people? Yeah, of course I would. But that wouldn't give me a great life. So it's about going, what's important to me right now at this point, and being really confident and going, that's fine. And, you know, it's funny when everyone has an opinion, don't they, about everything. And my daughter was saying that her friends were saying, when she told them that we have Rachel that cooks for us, my daughter's like, my friend said you're lazy. I don't care what your friend said. And honestly, I really don't care. Like, everyone can have an opinion, that's absolutely fine, but I'm doing what works for me and my family and my priorities. So I think the strength in that is just so good. It makes me so happy that I know I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah, I love that. And you're saying that you've your daughter's friends call you lazy. I remember reading, I think it's Richard Branson, and he said always have a lazy person on your team, because they find the shortcuts. They actually work smart. They're not really lazy. They're just like, well, why bother with all of that when I can just do this? Because
sorry, go on.
Yeah, they will really streamline your business.
And that's the truth, so I read who We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers, and I'm in her membership. She's excellent. And she talked about one of the first things you should outsource is home stuff. And I was like, that really didn't, like, that felt wrong to me, because it felt lazy. It felt like, well, surely everyone, there's so many other people that work and do their own cleaning and make their own meals and plan meals and go shopping and that sort of thing. But it's like, do you know what? I don't have to do that. And I don't necessarily want to do that. And she was my daughter, because obviously I share her with her dad, and she was saying to me that her stepmom was getting a bit stressed over dinner, and she was trying to ask her something, and I was like, that's what I don't want. So I made the priority that was important to me. I would rather sit and talk to you knowing that dinner's ready and I just need to serve it, than be like, I can't talk to you right now because I need to focus on this, or work. We got to a point where I'd get off calls at 8 p.m. at night, and my family were literally stood outside my door going, what's for dinner? And I would just like, no, I can't do this. I can't do that. So I think, yeah, the efficiency rather than lazy is really key. And it's so funny because, like I said, I've said to her, I'm really not bothered. And also I work really hard. And she's like, I know you work really hard. And I said, and that's the thing, like, I'm just saving time and making efficiencies where I can.
Yeah, totally. And that was the first thing I outsourced, was the cleaning, because even though, well, one, I don't like it. It's good to outsource the stuff you don't really like. And I wasted so much time feeling guilty about seeing these balls of fluff accumulate in the corners. That, just having someone that comes in like one day a week, all done, ironing done, everything, and having a nanny that would cook for the kids and prepare their food and everything as well. And the lockdown was great because I had a similar situation. It's like, well, what's for lunch? It's like, I don't know. I've got a meeting, sort it out. And they're like, oh, okay. So my husband and my kids had to figure it out. And I had a client who was really struggling to achieve her goals. And I said, well, why are you never making progress with this during the week? And you feel so stressed out? She said, well, I have to do the laundry. And I'm like, you've got 3 boys and a husband. Why are you doing the laundry like prime time on a Wednesday sort of thing, And
isn't this just a conversation that women would have?
Yes.
Like, it's so unfortunate that this is the case, but it absolutely is. And if my husband, let's say, was on his own with the children and he got someone in to cook, I don't think anybody would bat an eyelid. Like, because I made that decision and I chose to do that, like, in fact, I haven't even told my one sister yet, because I can only imagine, and she's been here ages, like, she's been cooking for us for months, but like, I can't imagine what they're going to say, and I just can't be bothered to listen to it, to be honest. But like you said, it's only females that are trying to do everything, and this whole "we can have it all" is true, except we need to decide what that all is that we want, and get help where we need it. We can't, I can't do this all on my own, and I'm not even going to pretend I can, and therefore I'm not sorry that I've got people to help me.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to dig more into that, but I don't want to waste the opportunity to dig into your real expertise, all about marketing and mindset. And it was great. Yeah, in my Facebook group, I think it was last week, I asked the question, what's more important, having the perfect strategy or having the self-belief and confidence and it was really interesting to see the responses. And most people felt, oh, you have to have that strategy because when you know what you're doing, you have that confidence. And my feeling was almost the opposite. I'm really curious, what would your answer be?
I totally agree. It would be the opposite. And I've got the most perfect scenario to explain this. So when I started the business, obviously I was doing marketing consulting. I've done marketing for years, and I started to move more into the online world. And a lot of my clients were online people. So I started to help coaches and consultants and various people launch their online services, so their memberships, their courses. And I got really good at it. Like, I did all the stuff, I learned everything, and I could do a launch with ease, and it would be successful. And I knew all the steps you had to take. I knew the systems, I knew the kind of copy you needed to write, how a sales page needed to look. I knew it all, and it was great, and it was brilliant. And I sat there back in the day thinking, I'd quite like this online world. So I created a course, had the course already, had it all set up, done. It was a content creation course on how to come up with content for social media, because that was like probably really big back in the day. And I sat on it for 12 months. Everything was done, everything was ready, and I didn't launch it. I had the strategy, I had the audience, I'd got, by this point I was getting more well known. So I had people in my audience, and I literally sat on the course and did nothing with it for 12 months. And I went to an event with James Wedmore, and I was part of his next level coaching, because I knew I needed to surround myself with the people where I wanted to be. And I'd taken some big financial steps in hiring Amy Porterfield's coach, Mary Hyatt, who's now a very dear friend, which is just lovely. I then spent a lot of money joining James's next level. And I was at his event, and I wanted to speak. I wanted for him to like interact with me and whatever, but I really didn't want a hot seat. I just thought, I'm in a room with really successful entrepreneurs. Like, some of these people's businesses are huge. And I have a great agency, but I'm on the very beginning of this online business. So anyway, after the first day, the next day he said, any key takeaways? And he was literally just going, what's your key takeaway? Thanks. What's your key takeaway? Thanks. I thought, oh, this is my opportunity. So I said to him, put my hands up, he gave me the mic, and he said, what's your key takeaway? And I said, that I'm not being the CEO my business needs me to be. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute. I wasn't expecting a question back. And I said, well, if I had been the CEO my business should be, I'd have launched my course. And he was like, what course? So basically we ended up going into this big discussion, and he was asking about the course, and he said, why haven't you launched it? And first off, I said, oh, it's just this little course. And he was like, listen to that, everyone. Did you hear how she just said that? She goes, when you talk about your children, he said, you go, oh, they're just this thing. And he's like, I want you to talk about your course like it's one of your children. So I said, I'd done this course, and I said, how much it was, which he instantly said it wasn't enough. And he said, why haven't you launched it? And I said, I don't know. And he's like, well, no, you do know. Why haven't you launched it? I said, I guess I'm scared. And he said, well, what are you scared about? And I said, well, what if I launch it and no one buys? What if I launch it and someone buys and they don't like it? What if I launch it and it just goes horribly wrong, and I'm the person who knows how to launch? What if people think I'm awful? What if people think this? And he said, so, what are you scared of really happening? And I said, that I'll fail. And he said, okay, well, how many courses have you sold so far? He said, so if you sell nothing, you'll fail. And I said, yeah. He said, so how many have you sold so far? And I'm thinking, well, I haven't launched it. I said, none. He said, well, you failed already then, haven't you? And I was just like, oh, it was like someone had hit me in the stomach.
Yeah.
And he's like, you failed. And that's the thing you're the most scared of. And that's when I realized the importance of that mindset is everything. I had everything I needed. Everything was done. The course was written, the videos are recorded, the worksheets, everything. It literally needed me to launch it. That was it. And I didn't do a single thing because my mind was going, people are going to hate it. They're going to think it's awful. They'll think you're rubbish. Then your clients will leave and you just won't have a business, and catastrophizing everything. So I left that event, and something like 3 weeks later, it was launched. I sold lots of them. It wasn't a 6-figure launch. It wasn't, I didn't make loads of money overnight. It wasn't like, I can live on the beach now. It was like I sold 30 of them and it was about £50, I think. But the point was I launched and I did it. And then, so for me, that's when I realized I've really got to work on this mindset thing, because nothing else really matters if I haven't got that, if I don't have the confidence, if I don't have the self-belief, if people who've worked with clients, I've been very lucky that I've only ever had one client get really angry. We made a mistake. We're humans. We make mistakes. It's annoying. And one of my team made a mistake and I didn't pick up on it, and he shouted at me, and I wanted to go into a hole with a bottle of wine and stay there because it felt so awful. And that's when the mindset stuff really kicks in. Lockdown happened. Sat there thinking, well, it probably just takes, 6 months off, shall I? No, that isn't going to be the case. You wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing it. You've got to do it. I realized that I could have everything I needed, but if I woke up one morning and felt like I wasn't very good and I didn't want to do it, that the business would fail. So for me, the mindset is the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. If you don't, and we hear that all the time on this show when I ask people, well, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? It's really, just have to trust yourself and believe that you can do this and go for it. With everything inside is like screaming, oh my gosh, can I really do this? And the only way to get over that is to prove yourself that, yeah, you can. And even if you don't, the sky doesn't fall down. The world doesn't end. You learn from that experience and you do it again better the next time. Or you discover that really wasn't what you wanted to do anyway. There's always a lesson. It's never really failure. It's all just information that's going to take you to that next success. So you mentioned there that it was all these negative voices that were holding you back. What can you do in that situation? Or do you know why we have this tendency to think the worst instead of thinking, well, maybe it could work?
I think we're just not deliberate about it. So we do, in my membership, we do a monthly mindset activity. And recently we did one where I got them to pick one thing that they were scared of doing. So one of them wanted to speak on stage. One of them wanted to launch something. I'm just trying to think of some of the other examples I had. But anyway, so I said, right, I want you to think about this thing. And then I want you to write down everything that could go wrong. And people don't often want to face that. They don't often want to think about that. It's going around in their head constantly, but they don't want to purposely go, well, what could go wrong? Because they're trying to fight against something in their head. So I got them to write down everything that could go wrong, everything. So we talked about the speaking on stage, because that's something I know about. And I was like, so you could fall over. That's always a fear of mine, falling over. You forget what you're going to say. You mumble your words. They don't like you. Someone thinks you don't know what you're talking about. Mine was like, I could pee my pants. Like literally, what if I got so scared I actually wee on stage? That would be a nightmare. All the things. Okay, so write them all down. And they're looking at me like, I just don't think I want to look at these things or think about them. And then I got them to write, and what would you do about it? And I think facing it is so key. That's what we're not doing. We're letting it run in our head, but we're not going, let's just get this out, shall we? And think about this it's like the book, The Chimp Paradox. You've got a chimp brain and you've got a human brain, and you're letting the chimp brain go crazy and the human brain is doing nothing. Whereas this allows the human brain to come up. So we wrote down what would happen. If I tripped over, I'd be really embarrassed, but I'd get up and carry on. If I forgot my words, I would now, because I've done it a long time, I would be human and go, oh, I completely forgot what I was going to talk about, because we're human and we make mistakes. If they didn't like what I said, well, that's fine. Not everyone has to like me. If they think they know more, there is a likely chance that someone might know more than you. If you can't answer a question, well, we can't possibly know everything. So then when you start writing down what would happen if that thing happened, it kind of takes the sting out of it. It kind of takes well, yeah, I guess I would just do that. If I peed my pants, I'd be really flipping embarrassed. But I'd just, would they notice? I'd go and stand behind the lectern, so really facing it. And then what I got them to do is write down, and what if it went right? What if everything that I wanted went perfectly as I want? What could that lead to? And it's things like other people ask you to speak, people love you, they want to come and have a conversation with you. You might get clients, you might get people following you on social media, you might get opened up to a whole new opportunity. So you might realize you flipping love it and want to do it more and more. So I think when it comes to these things, we almost need to get out of our own head, because while we're in it, just going, as all these things are whirring around our head, we're not making sense of it. The chimp is going crazy in there telling us that we are ridiculous and who the hell do we think we are. And I think listening to the words that we talk to ourselves is so important, because we are horrible to ourselves. And I think sometimes writing that down, so journaling for me is huge. I do it every single day. I love it. Getting that out on paper and then looking at it and going, do I really mean that? Do I really think, or what would I do if that thing happened? I think can just, like I said, take the whole fire out of the situation.
Yeah, I love that you suggested that, because when you write it down, you have a different connection and you force your human brain to engage, because the chimp brain can't think that way. And when you start writing it down and you realize, actually, as you say, well, that's just ridiculous, and this is the positive outcome, and it's much more likely that the positive thing would happen. And in my book, I talk about how I did exactly that. So I was petrified of networking, and so I decided, well, what could go wrong and what would I do in those situations? And because I already had a plan, then I didn't think about it anymore. And I felt so much more confident. And the thing was, none of those awful things ever happened. It's like, oh, well, that was just nonsense.
I'm so glad you just said that as well, that it's not just about writing down what can happen and what would you do about it, but what can you do to prevent it? So one thing that I do still to this day, well, I say to this day, I haven't stood on a stage for a long time. In fact, I am in a couple of months and I can't flip and wait, is I always go into the venue before anybody else is in the room and I stand on the stage. So I work out the steps to see how deep they are, whether they're even, where is good to stand. So you can make some plans to ensure. I always go to the toilet right before I go on stage, like I do breathing exercises. So when you address what might go wrong and you realize that actually if it did, it's really not as bad as you thought, but then you can make a plan and go, so what can I do, if anything? Because sometimes it's just literally jumping in with both feet. But what can I do, if anything, to help not let those bad things happen?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a TEDx speaker coach as well, and that's what we do the day before the event, is get people to stand on stage and experience it and feel, what does it feel like, and how do your shoes feel on that carpet? How do you feel wobbly? And just, we take them through everything possible. So on the day itself, the only thing they're thinking about is their speech and nothing else. They don't have any of these worries because they've worked through them already in advance, and that's just done. It gives them that mind space to focus on what's important. It's actually quite a fun experience to go through, because then they start to, the anxiety of giving a talk on that level is like huge, and then all of a sudden you just think, oh well, that was okay, I think I can do this, and just seeing them like grow in confidence is really wonderful. But it's so
funny. Sorry, is I've done a TEDx talk and it was a small audience, because it was I don't understand the rules, but when you first get a TEDx license, you can only have so many people in the audience or something. So it was earlier on in this TEDx's license. So it was a smaller audience, I think something like 80 to 100 or something. So it was nowhere near the biggest audience I've ever spoken in front of. The subject was easy because it was like a general conversation around social media and the change it's made in marketing. But oh my goodness, like that is the scariest ever talk I've done, because I knew it was a TEDx talk and I knew it was going on their website and I knew that people would watch it, and I was absolutely petrified. But I turned my nerves into excitement. It's the same, you get the same feelings. And I got on that stage, and like one of the women who was photographing the event had seen us practice, and she knew me anyway. She'd seen me around, and she was like, I know. She goes, when you get on stage, you give energy. She goes, you literally lifted the roof off with your energy. Like, but it took me 3 days to calm down. 3 days because I was literally like wired, because it was like so much around it emotionally, and excitement and scared. And yeah, but it's scary. And I think admitting that and going, yeah, it is, but I'm still going to do it. And at the minute I start talking, you can't get me off the stage. I love it.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? You have to feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's something that I learned the hard way. For a long time, I was waiting. It was like, well, when I feel more confident or when I get this, then I'll do these things. But the confidence only comes afterwards. You have to do it first. You have to be brave, courageous, do it. And then the confidence comes, because that confidence comes from trusting that you can figure things out and not knowing that you can absolutely ace it.
Yeah.
So you have to build that over time. But yeah, it's a lesson I learned way too late.
Yeah, if we'd known earlier, but we have to go through it.
So I know a lot of our audience are women in business, and I'm sure, and I know one of the number one questions everyone always has is around, well, how do I market my business? What's the first thing that you think that every business owner needs to know or do with their marketing? Or is there a common myth that you wish everyone knew? Well, that's a load of rubbish.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a cliche, and people use it way too often, but it is about being authentic. It's knowing that there are a million people out there who do what you do, and you are the only thing that separates them in most cases. Because most of the online business owners that I work with, they are either making the thing, or they're teaching the thing, or they're, doing the thing. So they are the thing in their business. And I think people get a bit nervous in the early days to talk about themselves and show themselves. They think there should be a certain type of themselves. Like, so I did an Instagram story the other week, and I'd been on I'd been speaking all day, and I'd been on screen all day, and I have a nice studio set up, so I've got all the lights, and it was warm in here. And I did an Instagram story going, oh my gosh, I'm sweating so much. And it's like, and someone messaged me going, oh, nice. Like, I knew them, but it's about being authentic. It's about going, do you know what? I am not perfect. Some people will listen to this and think this woman's an idiot. Some people will listen to this and think, I love this woman. But either way, that's fine, because I'm who I am, and I'm being authentically who I am. And I had one of my members come and meet me a little while back. She bought something to me. I'm gluten-free, and she makes bread. So she made me some gluten-free bread, and she said, can I come and deliver it? And I was like, well, yeah, that'd be amazing. And she got to me and she's like, I was so nervous about meeting you. And I'm like, I'm exactly the same, aren't I? And she's like, yeah, exactly the same. I was like, because I'm just being me. So one, being authentic, and two, you've got to boast about yourself. You've got to say why you're so good. And I think particularly women find that really hard. And I find that really hard in the early days, because I don't want to be seen as some arrogant, egotistical person. But the truth is, and the way I talk to my members about it is, you're stood on the side of a shore holding the thing that can help one of your customers, because this is all we're in the business of doing, of helping someone else, providing a need, a service, helping with a pain point. So they're there holding onto the life raft, and their customer is in the ocean, dying, drowning, can't catch their breath, can't swim, and they're there going, I don't want to say how good I am, or I don't want to put a post out asking people to buy from me, because they're so nervous about looking like an egotistical, arrogant person. And yet their customer's drowning. So then some absolute idiot down the way, who is more than happy, often male, more than happy to promote themselves and shout about themselves and be brilliant and say how amazing they are, even if they're not that amazing, is doing it, and they get to throw them the life raft. They get to save them. And the life raft probably isn't anywhere near as good or as comfy or as, well-rounded as yours might be. But the point is, they had the confidence to do it. So I think if we can get out of our own heads and go, yeah, I'm going to be really nervous doing a live, or I'm going to be really nervous and think I'm a fool when I do an Instagram story talking about some rubbish. But the truth is, I'm helping someone else in doing that by me showing up and going, oh, I've been talking all day on camera and I'm really sweaty, gives someone else permission to go, I can just be a bit of me as well. Like, me doing the thing that I'm doing is either giving someone else permission to do it, or it's helping someone. So if someone listens to this and thinks, do you know what, I've been sat on that launch, not done it for months and months, I'm just going to do it, then brilliant. That outweighs any number of did I say everything right? Have I acted like a fool? Are people going to hate this? You know, whatever, it outweighs it. So I think if we can not think about ourselves in this and think, I'm doing this for someone else, that really helps.
Yeah, I think that's what really turned things around for me when it came to networking, to speaking on stage, to doing anything visible. Was it isn't about me. It's not my message. It's their message. It's this gift that I want to give out to them and that they need, because I saw so many people suffering because they didn't know how to communicate their value or connect with the right people, and their business was going around in circles and they weren't getting anywhere. But it's like, you just, as you say, you have to jump in and say, here's that life raft, and go for it.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah,
love that you brought out, like, it's really important to be authentic and be yourself, because that's the only way you're going to connect the right people to you, those people that really resonate with who you are, and then therefore you both get a great result. Otherwise you just end up working with people that make you miserable.
oh,
And also this idea of boasting about yourself and being visible and telling people, yeah, I can do this, I'm good at this. Do you think it struck me that maybe that they both come from the same root of worrying that we're perhaps not good enough, or we're not ready, or there's fear of judgment in some way? Would you agree with that? And what can we do about it?
100%. It's the fact that we're worried about what other people are going to think of us. We're worried about what other people are going to say. And I've had it. Like, you know what's interesting? People think if they do post on social media about themselves that all the trolls are going to come out and be horrible. And the truth is they're not. Like, most cases, unless you're massive and you go viral, in most cases, people don't say anything. But when they do, and I've had it a few times where someone picked up on something I said and DM me, and I just thought, I'm not for you. And that's fine. And I think it just has to come from that confidence of knowing that you are good at what you do. If you're sat there thinking, well, I worry that I'm good at what I do, means you're fine. Like, if you worry that your service isn't good enough, you're fine. If you're sat there thinking, well, I'm just brilliant and I can't improve, maybe you might want to have a look at that. But the other thing I do, and it's a really practical thing, is I'm sat at my desk now. In front of me is my board, and on my board is every thank you card I've ever been sent, is every note, every thing that came with flowers. Every time anyone says anything nice, I want you to save that. So I have a love folder, so it's called Teresa Love, on my desktop, and I have my board in front of me. And if I get something physical, it goes on the board. If I get a tweet that says, oh, that was so amazing. If I get an email that says, thank you for being, in fact, I got one yesterday, which is so lovely, saying what an inspiration I was. If I get some posts from when I speak on stage, or someone who's got a really good nugget, I screenshot it and I put it in the love folder. And the time that you doubt that you want to show up authentically, or the time that you don't want to tell people how awesome you are, go and read that stuff and think about those people that you've helped. Think about some of the lives. And I think about some of the businesses and the people that I've worked with and where they are now. It's like, oh my God, that is amazing. And why wouldn't I want to do that for someone else? Why wouldn't I want to help someone do that? So that love folder, and like the physical love folder, I think these are so important, because, and again, I think this is, as women, we are really good at like batting ourselves down and saying we're not good enough, and saying that, you know, we're a bit rubbish. And I think we just need to have that physical reminder that we're actually really amazing.
Yeah, I love that so much. I'm a big fan of success journals, but I love that yours is so visual and physical, and you're really capturing every tiny thing that anyone's ever said. And I think that's really is I think it's been disproved now, but but I think it resonates with a lot of people, this idea that we have to hear 7 positive things for every 1 negative thing that wipes all of that goodness out. So if you have this, it's almost making you bulletproof towards any negativity. Like, okay, let me just like get myself back to where I need to be.
Yeah.
Look at my
I'm
board.
not feeling so great. I'll just read these things and think, oh, I'm actually all right. Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna have to do a love board.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody needs one.
Teresa, you have shared so many great tips and so many insights and advice, and I'm sure everyone's taken so much on board of what you've shared today, and they're going to feel much more confident about going forward with their business and their marketing. Is there anything before we wrap up that you would like to share that perhaps we haven't touched on yet?
I think for me, it's going back to that, the fear thing is massive. So I asked myself, what is the worst that can happen? Will I die? And for me, would I get pregnant? Because that would be pretty horrendous now. I do not want another baby. Thank you very much. But seriously, if neither one of those things are going to happen, then why not? Why not just try it? And when I look at my successful friends who have crushed the online business world, the only thing that sets them apart from everybody else is tenacity, is the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And that sense of strength and mindset is the only thing that has got me through that. Like when I moved over to my online business, like I said, my salary literally tanked overnight. That, in fact, I sent an email out just this week to my list saying that Christmas I was on the phone crying to my friend because I had got a credit card bill coming and I hadn't got the money to pay for it. Like horrible stuff. But the belief in myself was so strong that I knew if I could just hold fast and ride that wave, it would all come good. And it did. But that was my strength of mind. That was my mindset. That was all the work I'd done was for that. And then one final last thing is I always ask myself, what if this is exactly where you're meant to be? What if something has happened? So what started the online journey was I lost a big client. And I remember speaking to Mary, my coach, and being like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of money. This is this, this is this. And she's like, what if this is exactly what you're meant to have right now? What if it's exactly meant to be like this? And it was, because that started to free me up to then make me realize, this is what I've got to do. You can't always see it in the moment, but and even some of the huge, massive things that happen in your life. Another example I have is very sadly last year, my mum passed away very suddenly of cancer, and that was awful. It was horrible. And yet the gift from that is that I have a relationship now with my dad that I never knew existed. So there's always something, there's always a reason for it as far as I'm concerned. And at the time it didn't feel like how could anything good come out of this, but it did. So I just think, and it just makes me feel better. What was the difference? Like I could either sit there panicking about losing that client, or I could go, well, what if this is exactly where I'm meant to be? Whether I believe it or not, it just feels a whole lot nicer.
Yeah. And I love that change, because earlier you were saying about the what ifs in the early in your career, in your journey, were really the things that held you back. And I love that now the what ifs are what push you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, my husband's, there's a job opportunity that he's going for, which would be a big life change for us. And I very much left it into the hands of, well, if it's meant to be, it'll be. If it's not, it won't be. And I just think there's something really nice about just relinquishing that stress and going, I'm not going to worry or think about it until the decision is made. If I can control it, I'll control it. But if I can't, just go, well, we'll see. That's fine. And it just feels so much nicer.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And what a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today, Teresa. If there's anyone out there who wants to know more about you and what you do, what's the best way for them to find you?
So you can literally just search Teresa Heath-Wareing wherever you like to hang out, because I am everywhere. My favourite's Instagram. And if you go to teresaheathwareing.com, you'll find everything there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.